This is iPhone 13 Pro, and it's finally a Pro phone. Sort of. Let me explain. Although the Pro moniker has been attached to the iPhone for a couple of years now, this is genuinely the first year where I can say that the iPhone 13 Pro is a Pro phone. And this is because of the three main upgrades for this new generation of iPhone: the screen, the cameras, and battery life. It's these upgrades that make the iPhone 13 Pro, in my opinion, one of the most complete iPhones to date. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Avery and I create videos about tech and student life on this channel. If at the end of this video you like what you watch, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out. It shows your appreciation for these videos, and it also makes my parents very happy. Now, where were we? Oh yeah, iPhone 13 Pro. So at first glance, you may mistake the iPhone 13 Pro for an iPhone 12 Pro, and you'd have good reason to. There isn't really much aesthetic change this year compared to last year. But that being said, it's not a bad design. I personally really liked the square edges along with the stainless steel sides and the frost glass back. It makes the phone feel like a piece of jewelry. I also really like the Sierra blue colorway, but I will warn you that it isn't that saturated of a blue in most lighting conditions. In my hand, the iPhone 13 Pro is the perfect size. It maintains the perfect balance of being big enough to have enough screen real estate, but also being small enough to comfortably use in my hand and fit in my pocket. It's also quite heavy as well. It will feel like a substantial phone when you first pick it up, but by no means is it unwieldy. One notable change this year is the reduction of the notch by 20%. To be completely honest, I haven't noticed it at all, and the notch kind of just fades into the background in daily use. The only time it bothers me is when watching YouTube content in a 2:1 aspect ratio, kind of like Marquez's videos. It appears that the notch is actually a couple pixels deeper compared to previous iPhones because of how it cuts into the video with this aspect ratio. It's a small annoyance, but an annoyance nonetheless. But it's greatly overshadowed by how amazing this display is. The display on the iPhone 13 Pro is the primary reason why I went with it over the regular iPhone 13. And for one reason and one reason only. 3 words: high refresh rate. Or 2, if you put a hyphen in there. The iPhone 13 Pro finally has a 120 Hz ProMotion display. Thank you, Apple. This feature has been way overdue on the iPhone, but I'm so glad that it finally came. To my tech nerd eyes, it makes swiping, scrolling, and general UI interactions feel so much smoother and faster. And I literally cannot go back to a 60 Hz phone. But surprisingly, I don't really notice a refresh rate change when I use bigger screen devices like my MacBook for some reason. A 120 Hz high refresh rate display is really something that you need to see in order to believe. And once you have it, you cannot go back to a 60 Hz phone without it feeling like a laggy device. Aside from the high refresh rate, the display quality also is a 10 out of 10 for me as well. It's really sharp, extremely color accurate, and it also gets really bright as well, up to 1000 nits in regular usage. It's one of the best OLED panels in any smartphone today, period. I'd happily stare at it for hours on end each day. And now onto probably the biggest upgrades on the iPhone 13 Pro. It's the cameras, and boy do we have a lot to talk about in this section. The 13 Pro has 3 cameras. The main wide-angle camera has an f1.5 aperture with a ridiculously large sensor, and also sensor shift stabilization. The ultra-wide camera now has a wider f1.8 aperture and has macro capabilities as well, which we'll touch on later. The telephoto camera now has a 3x zoom equivalent to 77mm and an f2.8 aperture. All cameras have a 12 megapixel resolution, and all cameras are the same between the iPhone 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max as well. Right off the bat, photos taken with the iPhone 13 Pro are really good. Coming from an iPhone 7 Plus, I noticed an immediate difference in the colors, the dynamic range, and the overall sharpness as well. Vibrant colors like blue skies and reds and oranges of leaves are punchy but never oversaturated. In terms of dynamic range, the iPhone 13 Pro can also capture so much of it. Bright areas of photos are never overexposed, and the darkest of shadows are never too dark. In almost any lighting situation, I'm always confident that I'm going to get a good photo with the iPhone 13 Pro. There are two new features related to photos that came to the iPhone 13 Pro: photographic styles and macro capabilities, the latter of which is exclusive to the iPhone 13 Pro. Photographic styles allows you to change the look of your photos to a preferred setting. There's the default look, rich contrast, vibrant, warm, and cool. These differ from basic filters because they apply their respective changes to specific places in the photo, and they also cannot be changed after you take the photo. I just stick with the default look, but if you want to make your photos look more like a Pixel or a Samsung phone, these may be here for you, but I think most people will just stick to the standard mode. Next is the new macro mode, and the addition of focus pixels to the ultra-wide sensor now allows the iPhone 13 Pro to take macro photos that are 2 centimeters away from your subject. And these photos are pretty cool given enough light. But I do have one small nitpick with this. Because it switches automatically to macro mode when you're within like 15 centimeters of a subject, this is a problem for me when I just want to take a regular close-up shot with the regular wide-angle camera, but without the macro mode. And it can change the photo from looking like this to this. Yeah, very big difference, but it is fun to shoot with. Now on to video, and this is where the iPhone shines. There's no doubt that the iPhone has the highest quality video of any smartphone right now. All three cameras can shoot and record up to 4K video at up to 60 frames per second. I personally shoot in 4K 30 FPS, and the videos look extremely crispy and have a cinematic quality to them. It still has the same amazing dynamic range as in photos, and the quality rivals some DSLR cameras, even in low light situations. And the stabilization, oh my god, the stabilization. It's on the same level of stabilization as my DJI gimbal back there. Even walking with heavy footsteps and holding it in one hand doesn't show any noticeable signs of shakiness. I was super impressed. But the headline new feature of the iPhone 13 lineup is the new cinematic mode. In a nutshell, it's pretty much portrait mode, but for video, but it's a little more complicated than that. In general, cinematic mode works pretty well, kind of like how portrait mode first started out. If you give it enough light and the subject doesn't move too frantically, it looks pretty good. You can also adjust the depth of field after the fact and where you want to focus as well. But this only works in Apple's own video editing apps. But there are some quirks that need to be ironed out before it's something that I would use on a daily basis. There are times where the iPhone will hunt for focus or won't focus exactly where you want it to. This is especially a problem when you let the iPhone select which subject you want to focus on, because it could focus on the wrong thing. It also only shoots at up to 1080p at up to 30 frames per second, which might be a problem for some of you 24 FPS diehards out there. But I am optimistic that cinematic mode will improve through software updates in the future, just like how portrait mode did. Oh wow, that was a really long section, but the TLDR is that the iPhone 13 Pro's camera system is absolutely amazing and the most complete camera system in any phone to date, in my opinion. And because photos and videos are becoming so important in so many people's lives, including my own, I'm glad that these cameras are capturing my memories in the best quality ever in an iPhone. Battery life on the iPhone 13 Pro is stupidly good. For context, my average screen on time has been around 1.5 hours each day, which I know is way less than most users, but I'm ending the day with around 70% left. 70%! and this includes social media, video and podcast streaming, taking some photos and 4K videos, all with the screen at around 70% brightness. I'm really impressed with the battery life for once on an iPhone. And I'm just quickly going to speed run the performance section. In summary, it's really fast. Everything is super snappy and responsive, and I have no doubt that it will receive the latest software updates for at least 5 years. And here are just some other small things that I've noticed in my daily use. As a first-time Face ID user, I can confidently say that Face ID is almost as convenient as Touch ID. But unfortunately, Face ID does not work while wearing a mask, which is still something important to note, especially during this flu season. iOS 15 is still in its early stages, which means that there are a lot of bugs to be worked out. Although I haven't experienced many major issues, many users have reported problems like abnormal battery drain, UI lag, and much more. Just be wary if you encounter any of these issues. So, the iPhone 13 Pro is a minor update. There's no surprise in that. But the thing with minor updates is that they compound over time, and they make the overall experience so much better for the consumer. For example, just take me. I've been using an iPhone 7 Plus for over 4 years now before I got the iPhone 13 Pro. And all the incremental updates over that period of time added up to a phone that I genuinely love to use today. And I feel like many others are in the same boat as me. People who have much older phones that are deciding to upgrade this year. That's kind of how smartphones are nowadays, and they will most likely continue to be like that for the foreseeable future. But sometimes all those upgrades, all those little baby steps will finally add up to a phone that is, in my opinion, Pro. Hey everyone, thank you so much for sticking to the end of the video. This video was definitely one that I put a lot of effort into, but I think it was definitely worth it. As always, gently tap the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever I release a new video. With that being said, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.